Yeah, Debbie's on.
I'm on.
It's kicking it to my laptop. So. I'll get it figured out. Let's see, this one gives me options. It's like the speakers. Hey, Debbie, could you talk one more time?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I'm a little scratched. I've got a little bit of a cold, so.
We got you loud and clear,
All right, great.
Peachy.
We'd like to welcome you to City Council meeting. It is Thursday, May 1st. We want to excuse Ryan Hill, who is not with us tonight, and Lisa Northrup, and we have Debbie on Zoom. So, and we appreciate all of you being here with us tonight. We are going to go ahead and have a pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Wilcox, and then I will give the words.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we are so grateful to be here tonight as a community. We are so grateful for all the freedoms we enjoy, for those that represent and serve our country, for our young men and young women that are serving in the service. We're grateful for the community and for the neighbors, friendship and fellowship and rebuilding. We ask that you always bless this community of Hooper. Please bless us as we make decisions that we will always be able to keep the best interest of our residents. That we may be able to always do those things that we want to. We're so grateful for everything we have. We say these things by Jesus Christ.
Amen.
We don't have any upcoming events, so we're going to start off with party guests. Be allowed to come up. You have 3 minutes. If you'll come up and state your name.
My name is Dylan Robinson. I am a resident of Hooper. Like was talked about in the meeting beforehand, I would like to have the small home occupation or the home occupation signage looked out. And I would like to put on that future city council discussion for kind of voting on exactly where I'm going to be involved in some discussions on site and whatever potentially beforehand on that if we can. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments?
I'm Jay Coleman. I'm here for J.R. James. He's the property owner that lives next door to the sewer treatment plant over there on 4623 South, 6300 West. That Councilman Wilcox, it looks like, was going to talk about it in the public meeting, but I wasn't there. Are you aware of that? JR was told it would be addressed today at city council meeting. Has that changed or?
I think you probably came in after we addressed it. We actually did talk about it in the work session.
Okay.
And I think between the consensus of the three that are involved, that I think it'd be wise to have, just drop a lease agreement and allow him to utilize it as long as he doesn't put any structures on it. With kind of the thought that if he ever needs it, then we would go ahead and occupy it. That's what we've done with everybody else that has to be surrounded.
I think the issue was there, he's trying to build a hay shed for his horses. So it'd be a pole barn of some type. You know, like you said, if there was some kind of issue where it could be a lease, even if it is a pole barn that could be removed at one time or another. If we get a 5-year lease or something like that, I'm not sure what he's really interested in, but he wanted me to report back to when his wife is graduating, so he needed to be there. Would that be all right to begin to get back with you, Councilman Wilcox, and get something figured out there?
Sure, yeah. Obviously, it'll be all of our decisions, but yeah, you can reach out to me. I just think there might be an issue if there was a structure on it.
Yeah,
Maybe we would, I don't know, we just have to have a discussion.
yeah. Have you seen the picture of the property? Okay, so you guys are aware of how much land there is? 67. Okay, cool. Would you like to see a picture of it? Can I give you a piece? It's all right if I come up there?
Yep.
I promise I'm safe. Here's just that copy of the property, and if you look at the very back page, you can kind of see the little amount that he is looking at. He has been there for 18 years using the property until he went to put a structure on it. He didn't realize that he didn't own it. And so that's when he brought it to somebody's attention here to try to get that resolved. So I'll back out and I'll let him reach out and touch base with you guys, and I appreciate your time and effort. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's really good. Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay, seeing no other public comments, then we'll go on to our first consent item, which is the approval of the minutes dated April 3rd. April 3rd, is there, have you reviewed those minutes? Are there any corrections, additions to the minutes? Debbie, did you have any corrections on the minutes?
No, I did not.
Any council members? Okay, then is there someone who'd like to make the motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for Thursday, April 3rd, 2025.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Pierce. Is there a second? Second was made by Councilmember Wilcox. All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, so the next thing we have on the agenda is a discussion on the RFP. This is something that we have talked about in the past. I know Debbie is the one that had wanted this on the agenda for the discussion. So I don't know, Debbie, if you wanted to start with this or.
Could you repeat that, Sherry?
So the next item on the agenda is the discussion on the RFP. So I didn't know if you had something you wanted to start discussion, if you just wanted me to talk about it, I wasn't sure.
I don't know as far on the RFP, I didn't think that there needed to be much discussion about it, because we are compliant with all that we need to be, as $25,000, and our procurement ordinance is fine. And it's after we reach that we have to start looking at RFPs, and we've been at $25,000 or less, except for the last couple years. And I think that we need to rein that in, and we should stay at the 25,000 from now on.
The attorneys sent in a contract, is that correct? So we
Yes.
responded back to that. Signed.
No, so they had sent in a contract But then when we went through our finances, and if you go to our services and supplies, and it says it needs to, anything over 25. So when we went through our accounts payable, we are already over the 25, and we haven't completed the year. So I went through our accounts payable. The very least I could ever see of one of their bills for the month was about 2,500. So even if we took the 2,500 for the year, and we've had some that have been upwards more than $5,000, just a little bit less than 5,000. So they always send and part of the thing too is we go back with this, finish that sentence first, but we're paying more than 20. And so, what the state auditor had said was that we are required to do an RFP. That doesn't mean that they have it now. Again, we just have to then accept for that because it is over 25,000. I know I have this, which we can look at again, which is the request for proposals. So I went through this and I highlighted everything because the majority of it is, instead of city council. But I don't see how we get away from not doing an RFP because we are paying more than that.
Did we look at the reason or the costs involved for the increased costs for our legal the last 2 years? Because I looked historically at it and we've never been near there. And but we have recently. Did we get an itemized listing of what was being done so differently? Because we need to change that. And then if we do the RFP, then we would also need to do one for JUB because they're way above 25,000. And we probably need to do one for Richards. Is it Richards and Reed? Or I can't remember our accountants. I mean, if we need to do it for one, we probably need to do it for all.
So to answer your first question, Debbie, I think county, we figured out a little bit what had gone on from the budget before, and she said there would be, for instance, 22,000 that were attorney fees that were listed under general. Then there would be another 20,000 that was listed under engineering, under sewer. And she said, and when the question was even asked, why were those listed separately? And she said, well, she really didn't know that before she started doing the budget. So if you actually go through and add up accounts payable, and I don't know, she said she was going to send you that email, Bryce, I received that told the amounts. So the whole point of this is we are over the 25,000. As we mentioned before, this was something that the state auditor sent to us, not something that was, they were the first ones that contacted. This was back December of 2023 when they pointed that out. So that's the answer to that first question. This is something that we need to do, and if you go to our actual code, which is 217 services 5, where we do follow the state code. The second question, as he said, so the reason why we did not have to do the RFP for our engineering was because of the sole proprietorship because of our sewer. We talked about that. Different part of our engineering we want to do, but then in some cases we don't pay 2 engineers. So for every subdivision review, we're going to be paying the general engineer cost. We're going to be paying the sewer engineer cost, which could double the cost to the city. And so because of our relationship we have had with JUB, our sewer, everything they already have, all of our sewers, it really is cost effective to not be paying for two engineers. And the third part of that was Child Richards, which is also brought up. They are appointed.
Right.
One thing I cannot find anywhere though, and maybe Dale, you know this, I don't know how many years they were appointed for. That appointment was made before I was elected. So I don't know how many years we appoint a treasurer for. But you don't do, RFPs for your treasurer because that's something.
Okay, my thoughts are about our legal is along the same lines as with JUB. The fact that our legal is so well versed in Hooper, you could not replace their knowledge, is much the same as with JUB and their knowledge of our sewer system. So that's why I'm concerned. You can find an attorney fresh out of school who will, I'm sure, outbid anyone. But what do you lose in respect to that? I mean, you lose the knowledge. I mean, they've been with the city since its inception and has helped with almost all of our ordinances and stuff. And that's my concern, is that we lose something like that. Whereas, you know, JUB brings their specialty and our attorneys bring their specialty. That's my biggest concern.
So I have a solution, I think, for this. Here's the Utah procurement. It says municipalities have the authority to adopt their own individual procurement code, and it must be adopted by ordinance. Councils of the Utah Housing Authority may choose to adopt some or all of the Utah procurement code. So if I go to our procurement code on services and supplies, it says whenever the total price of a contract for services or supplies is estimated to be greater than 25,000. The procedures of Utah Code 10.720 as mentioned shall apply. I look back at our attorney fees over the last several years, and just recently, that's when it spiked and hit the threshold. There was some legal issues that were unexpected with the developer that were lumped in there as well. My thought, and what I would like, since we need to stay within a budget, we put it at 25,000, and we work to stay within that budget, and we follow the state code and our own ordinance. And I've spoken with Reed, and he feels like that's, you know, he said, yeah, it's spiked over the last little while. I probably shouldn't have. So, and I'm kind of, I get the thing with JUB, however, they do a lot more than just our sewer. So in all fairness, Debbie's argument that, you know, we can solicit for other engineering services, other firm, and they can do it on the sewer side. So in all fairness, I mean, we voted as a council not to do the RFP out of respect to Brandon Reed, their tender, their actual contract from resolution back in 2002, I believe, is actually legally enforced, but we decided to go ahead and get that contract, and they sent it over to the city, and they're just waiting for that to be signed. So that's my solution to the RFP, is we put it at 25, because that's our estimated, and we stay within our budget.
Unfortunately, the state auditor does not recognize. He said this. You cannot say attorney can be a sole proprietor, because there are a variety of attorneys that can come in and do that position. Like I say, that doesn't mean that we won't put out the RFP, they bid, we continue to have them provide our legal services. We do need to follow, though. We have already spent, we're already over this amount. So unless if we, from now till the end of June, say we are not going to use any, but we're still over. Bottom line, no matter what, we have still already paid more than 25,000. I just, my question is, I just don't understand why we are just not trying to follow state code and our own code and just put out an RFP and let them rebid. You know, you're the ones that decide. And if you go through anything, these requests for proposals, you know, you go through, you put it out, they rebid it. The same we can do with any, if you want to do an RFP for whoever, we can do that. I just feel like we do need to legally be following what we are required to do by the state.
You know, the gentleman from the state said that it was that they highly suggested we do this. he did not say that we were legally required to do that, because I asked him specifically that. And so I was kind of surprised that he said, this is something we highly suggest you do. So it was, he told us that it was not legally binding, which I thought was a little different than what we were understanding at the time. And I guess the whole thing just came at a bad time. You know, they were fired, you know, after a little mishap, and it just kind of, all of this has just been bad timing, I suppose. And so that's why it just doesn't set well with me, or I don't think it looks good for the city.
So one thing the auditor did say, if you remember, when you asked if it was required, he said it was required to do the RFP. The recommendation was how often you do those. The recommendation was that RFP should be done within every 3 to 5 years. And then when you said is this required or recommended, it is required to do an RFP. The recommendation is how often we do those. And this didn't just come up. You know, I brought in that via those emails. This actually was requested of the city back in December 23. So this has been over almost a year and a half now that the state auditor has been saying to us, you do not have a binding contract. Show us your contract. What we do have is a resolution that was signed. So I don't see what the objection is. Do an RFP, let them bid. You get to choose, city council chooses. If that's who you so choose for your legal, then sign a contract. And then we can be on legal grounds that we're supposed to. And then every so many years, however the city feels necessary, then we're supposed to.
I think we, if we do my suggestion, I think we would be complying, we would 100%. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, staying in a budget. And it was the last year, we got a spike, and I don't believe the city auditor came looking for the problem. I think this quote supposedly issue was brought to them. I mean, they're not there as being a police force when the person that complained didn't realize we did have a contract with our attorneys. And so that was kind of a bogus complaint. And that's what started all of this, a complaint, a grammar request, whatever, what have you. That's what started it all. Else we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Again, you're right on that. I don't know where that came from. The first email I ever received was after I was elected, and we all received it. I believe Dal, you received one, council member. But again, we're already over the 25, so what do we do now? And so as of right today, we have already paid our legal counsel over 25. So if we want to say, we get our attorneys, and then when we say we're not going to ever pay them more than 25,000, but sometimes that is really hard to do because, just as you mentioned, we had a litigation that did involve some of our attorneys. It also involved other attorneys as well. We only needed counsel. Okay, we don't know as a city. You don't know from situation to situation what attorney you're going to need. So yes, you're right. Everybody needs to stay within a budget. But you saw it increased our budget because once she found there was money, one place for the attorney, another place for attorney, and as council, we talked about, right, we have money in the budget in the sewer for the attorney. Do we ever use the attorney in the sewer? Probably not. And I don't remember what number she ended up landing on, but I think at that last budget meeting, it was either $40,000 or $45,000 a year for attorney, which their price is going up, which is understandable because they haven't increased it. I don't know if we would ever get a legal services for a city that we could get for $25,000. Most cities are upwards in the 100,000 plus range, so I think that sounds like a nice idea, but I don't think we'll ever be able to stay within $25,000 for legal services.
Well, this is just a discussion on our agenda, and I agree with what Council Member Wilcox said. You know, we budgeted at 25,000, we've done that year after year, and that's what has to stay in place. If it doesn't exceed, if our budget doesn't exceed 25,000, then we don't have to issue an RFP, and the council already voted to rescind the RFP for legal counsel. So I'm a little surprised we're even addressing it again.
So just to reiterate, in our budget, we do not, for next year's budget, have 25,000 legal services. As Cami said, there was like, I think it was 22 or 23,000 that was listed under general for legal. There was another 20,000 that was listed in sewer legal. So she combined that. If you look at what, and so we have, it was either 40 or 45 dollars in our budget next year for legal. So we have been spending that much for legal. It's just been listed in different places. And I think even Councilmember Hill brought up and said, well, is this been hidden? And she said, no, it's just put in different, they're in different places in the budget. So the reason why this is coming up is because our code, state procurement code, says anytime we have anything over 25,000, if it's a contract, you need to do an RFP. So that's why cities are required to do bids. That's just the legal process. And I think part of the reason why they do this is just so it is transparent. So you always have to get bids. And again, I don't see where we have any choice but to follow what we need to legally do. Everybody else has to do this. It's an RFP that you do if you have a legal contract for 25,000. So I think this is something that we do. And as I mentioned before, we have.
So are you saying that we never have to get one for JUB?
What was that, Debbie? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Are you saying that we don't ever have to get one for JUB because they have I can't say the word, that they have special knowledge of a system that we have?
So what the state auditor explained that night at our city council meeting was that JUB could be considered a sole proprietor, which if there is only somebody that, because our sewer system, if we had the normal sewer system, everybody else in the United States, we probably could go to any engineering firm and have them help us because most of them do all of the work through their sewer districts. That is not the case with our sewer system. We have a vacuum sewer system. There's only one of them in Utah that's not as large as ours. There's only a handful that are even in the United States. So that is the reason why he said that we could count them as a proprietor. Yes, we can do an RFP for JUB. Certainly we can. If that's what you want to do, we can. I was saying though, I don't see that we would want to have two engineering firms. So it's pretty evident that we need to keep JUB for our sewer. And I don't know that we want to be paying two engineering firms for everything we go to do. It just, I don't think would be very cost effective.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that they weren't a guaranteed provider of ours just because of that.
So as Councilmember Bowers mentioned, this is a discussion. My recommendation is you know, Morgan can send you out this RFP again and you could look through it. As I mentioned, that all an RFP is just a request for proposal. It says request for proposals for legal services. And this was one that was given to me by the state. I know before when we talked about it, there was some language that was in there that, and I know there were some, but what my suggestion would be, then let's send this out to everybody and everybody look through it. And then we could have this back on the agenda, excuse me, another day to look through and see what you want to do. And as I mentioned, I went through and highlighted, everything you do is city council, send to city council, approved by city council. I know there was one question, which certainly this maybe needs to be, have some adjustments that we talked about, you know, who do we authorize they can call or not call, and that would be my recommendation. We send this out, let everybody do it, review it, see what they would like to do, if they have any recommendations. We'll have this on the agenda at another time to talk about.
My recommendation is, you know, like I said, if we go over 25 and maybe do this like next year, but I did go back, look over the previous years. And they're like 19,000, 20,000. Yeah, they did raise the rates, but I don't really, it's not planning on coming this often. So, I mean, that's where I'm.
I think the only way we'd be able to be in compliance then is you would want to change and have your procurement code to be over 25,000. Because as I mentioned, we are already over 25,000 this year. So if we use that one other legal service between now and June 30th, we are already over. And we know we're going to have legal. We know we're going to have things that come up because we have some, we're working on divorce right now. So we would just have to say, and again, that's not what's been in our for the past year. So maybe that's something Bryce or council member will actually sooner look at is changing our procurement to have it be something higher than 25,000. That is following the state, but we could always change that as well. I don't think so. I think 25 is good. You know, that's the thing like we talked in our work meeting was about the furnace, you know. As a city, it's much easier. You do your home, you go, if you want someone to come to a service, you hire somebody and they come. That's not how it works within a city. Because of the codes that we have to follow and transparency, we are required to do certain things. And I am good with 25,000. But I don't.
But we have a good discussion, so maybe we can move on.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so we have Taylor, who is on Zoom with us. And he's going to be having a discussion about our impact fees, and then also our next thing he can tell us about too is his transportation plan.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about these impact fees with you guys. I'm just going to try to share this table. We can look at. Let's see. Sorry, almost there. All right, can you guys see this table?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I was just tasked with trying to figure out more about how we can start applying some impact fees on some of our utilities and updating certain impact fees that we currently have. The utilities that we have there listed here for the sewer impact fee, parks and trails impact fee, and a storm drain. The transportation master plan listed there is something that's already been completed. But I thought I'd show it there as something that we're working on. And then the general plan update and commercial standards. But the parks plan, that's something that we've wanted to do for a while. And so now I came up with the cost for it. And while I was doing that, we've kind of found a good opportunity to the Utah Recreation Outdoor and Planning Group that would give us an 80% grant for that. So the city would then, the local match for that would be 17,000. I want to talk a little about the sewer master plan and impact fee. So I actually started doing this assuming that we didn't have any planning. And that's where that cost of 150,000 came in. That, sewer is pretty complicated, especially hoopers. Planning for that was a little bit more costly, but we actually just found out that we actually this was Tracy Allen before he left. He actually got a lot of planning done for our sewer and would greatly reduce the cost of that to be able to apply an impact fee. Somewhere and reduce it by half. To do the impact fee facility plan and doing an impact fee analysis, those are kind of separate. Those would still cost about 25 grand a piece, but then to come up with more of a capital improvements list or a sewer impact, like for the plan, that majority of that work has actually already been completed. So that's some really good news there. And then our storm drain plan. This one's kind of complicated. So one point to notice is back in February, Hooper is part of the MS4 permit with the state of Utah. That's the permit that municipalities work with in the state of Utah to ensure that water quality and stormwater management is being practiced properly. That's what every municipality in Hooper and Weber counties participates in. So we had our audit back in February, and then they are going to notify us 90 days after that audit, which is coming up in 2 weeks, of where we fall short in certain things. I'm afraid there's going to be we fall short in a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of improvements to the stormwater management plan that we're going to have to include, and that also includes part of our stormwater management plan, master planning. So it's not something that Hooper has really done a whole lot with, as in planning for storm drain. A lot of the storm drain that we do is developer driven. They just develop what they need for their they construct whatever they need for their development, and that's kind of how we've done it. But I'm afraid I haven't received the audit yet, but I think there's going to be a larger push or requirement really for us to include in our master planning. And so I didn't really even try to come up with a realistic cost for that. Well, it's not realistic, but an accurate, it's more of a guess of what that cost is going to be, because I think there's going to be a lot of state requirements that are going to have to be included in that cost, which are going to drive it up higher. But that's something that we haven't really been collecting impact fees on. A lot of municipalities do. I looked it up for West Point. They charge $4,000 an acre for developed acre of impact fees. So we might have to spend a lot to be able to start collecting impact fees for storm drain, but believe that there's a lot of money that could be collected from impact fees for those projects. maybe I'll stop right there. Is there any questions you want to talk about with the sewer, parks, or storm drain impact fees?
I have one question on the sewer. You mentioned that Tracy had done some work prior to him leaving. So that 150 could be less. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, it would be significantly less. Yeah, we already have plans for east area sewer and west area sewer, which are going to help us out a ton when it comes to doing the IFFP and the IFA. At
So
that
you're,
point, oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
What I was going to say is, it really then is going to come down to kind of like a buffet style of, do you guys want this information? Do you want to know how much our lift stations are pumping, or do we want to know this? So you can kind of walk down the buffet aisle, say, we want some of this, we want some of this, we don't want that. And so that would, the cost to do those certain things would change a lot. There's a lot more that goes into that.
So it looks like, so do you think for roughly 200, we could do the sewer, parks and storm drain? Is that kind of what I'm,
I mean, if you're looking at getting that, if we got that grant for parks, then yeah, I feel like that's really realistic. Let me show you. So this is where I looked at, compared what you, do you guys still see what?
Yes,
Okay, you still see it. Where did I lose? I can't see what I'm looking at. Okay, there it is. Sorry. So yeah, West Point cities, what their impact fees are. They're collecting $100 for sewer, 2,000 for parks, 4,000 for storm drain, 1,500 for transportation. And this is what I believe is accurate for Hooper City. For parks is 12,000, so that could easily be doubled. And then I guess there's one kind of larger impact fee that Hooper City does. I think some of it goes to, or maybe a large portion of it goes to Central Weaver Sewer, but that's 4,000. So I think it was about $3,000 short of compared to West Point, that we really could be collecting, which would easily pay back some of the costs for those things. And I'd like to, and also talking about the cost. This is kind of, I mean, JEB and Hooper have worked together for a long time. The way, like, we just have worked well together. We do a lot of these projects based off of time and material, assuming that we're doing this for as efficiently as possible, and then charging for what that actually costs. Not to make any, like, saying, throwing out 150 out there, committing you guys to saying that's the price that it's going to be, and if we do it more efficiently, then we make more money. That's not the way we've done business with Hooper, and we'd like to keep doing it the same way for these impact fees, is keeping it on a time and materials aspect, and just do this as efficiently for the city as possible.
Taylor, will you go to that next slide that you showed the comparison of the, yes, this one. This is one thing that we've talked about with our staff. We haven't been collecting, and it's not that we're trying to say we don't want you to build in Hooper. So we're not trying to overly increase our impact fees, but new homes do have an impact on the city, and we haven't been collecting these. So we've gone to do, like, for instance, the road project, and someone will say, well, you're using your road impact fees. Well, we're not, because we don't collect. And the same with this storm drain, we charge $5 a month per resident, but that is not an impact fee. That is just start to keep going, and then they have to do the audit. So I agree with what you said, Taylor, we would get that money back pretty quickly if we impact, raise, because we're just way far behind, and we don't even have impact fees on what we should charge.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions on this particular one for Taylor? Okay, they don't have any questions on this.
Yeah, I mean, I came here kind of presenting the budget and money information, like, want to see closer into like what the scope and fee would be, what certain tasks we can maybe eliminate, what we could add into. I mean, there's a lot of discussion that can go into those, to really pin down the needs of the city. But I think it's something that is really needed, and we'd be happy to help out.
So that just sparks one question. So the in-depthness you go, does that determine how much more? Say if you do 10 items, or you can do 10, we decide we only want you to do 5. Does that determine the dollar amount we can charge if we went deeper into the study? Or is it just the same?
Not so much. I think it'd be about the same. If you're trying to save, say, just $10,000, I don't think it would necessarily reflect in what the impact fee collection would be. It's just assisting in what plans you're trying to make in the future. Which projects it might just end up in the quality of your plan, your 7 years, 10 years from now. That's the way I see it. With our sewer lift stations, there's kind of a lot of question of actually how much sewer are we pumping and vacuuming, and if that's something you wanted to know for sure, start monitoring how much flow is going through there, you could do that. Or if you just want to assume, saying, I think this is going to get us pretty close to what we need, then you could go that path, save some money, not really knowing if that's exactly what the city needs for 10 years from now, kind of thing.
Well, I think because of the uniqueness of our sewer, it would be good to maybe have a little more accurate than maybe not, because from my understanding, those of us that are on the vacuum sewer, yes, you could change it, but it's just very expensive to change that. So I'm not saying we go with the Cadillac version, but I would like to have, I think, a little more accurate information on the capacity or the where or how long we think, especially those that are in the, in the vacuum, maybe more so than just the lift stations.
I do have one comment, Taylor, maybe you can look into this, but it was my understanding that our system is pumping roughly 40% less material than, say, like the system. And I think that would be good information to know, where we could go to Central Weaver Sewer District and tell them, hey, we probably ought to be charged accordingly. We should pay. And I don't know if we are. If we're paying the same as Ogden City, but our system is pumping less, we should probably be charged less, in my opinion. So before we go that route, I'd be curious to see if that is in fact true, but that's what I have been told.
Yeah. I could see that, and then one thing they would say is, well, prove it, right? And I don't know if we have a great way of proving that. But yeah, sewer districts they're kind of hard to work with sometimes, honestly. They kind of are the big dogs, and big money. So, but it would be worth looking into and planning for it.
Any other questions on this part then before we have Taylor discuss the transportation plan? Because this is something we have to make if we approve this transportation master plan. This is also something that they've been working on for a number of years. Any other questions? Debbie, any questions for Taylor? This part before we move on?
No, none from me. Thank you.
Either. Okay, Taylor, thank you. Then let's go on to then the discussion on the transportation.
Yeah, so that transportation plan, this was done, this was started back in 2022 on, and it's just kind of finally getting finalized. Um, it's the same thing as we see in these sewer parks and storm drain. It would be needed to apply for, we'll start doing an impact fee facilities plan and impact fee analysis. But what it really is a good tool for is, as development comes into Hooper, you know, they can say, well, we got this parcel, so we're going to build this road the way we want to. But if Hooper City has a different plan, saying actually we plan to have some interblock connectivity that connects this block to that block, we have something to enforce the developer into doing it that way, the way the city's planning it out. So, you know, it includes growth rates. It includes the future West Weaver corridor that would be coming through Hooper. You know, counting how many vehicle trips are being made on each roadway to do this and that. And so it really is a really good plan. It's been through a lot of review, through a couple engineers along the way, that because there's been some turnover going on from Tracy to me, with Bryant to me. And we've been working with Public Works closely to make sure we get everything that they see is needed, and I believe that's now something that's ready to be adopted and be used by the city.
Are you there, Taylor?
Yeah, can you hear me?
You're really hard to hear, but we can hear you, but it's really quiet. But I do have one question. And to be honest, I haven't gone through this whole plan, but in the state roads in particular, I know obviously they're maintained by the state, but it's my understanding if we don't have, I'm going to talk kind of like bicycles, bicycle traffic, because that's pretty popular out here. Are there provisions to, as this plan goes forward and as, you know, things progress, are there provisions to have those bike lanes on the state roads as well as our roads? I didn't see it, but I could be missing it.
You know, yeah, that, I mean, in transportation master plans in general, would do include active transportation. And when it comes to adding pedestrian bike lanes onto the state roads, yeah, that's up to them to do. We also looked at it on the city roads. In our 10-year plan, there didn't seem to be a need for any pedestrian bike lanes on city roads. It does include the trail system. Like they did analyze that in the trail system, saying that this could be used for pedestrian travel and bicycles instead of the cost that would be going into the city roads, to adding those lanes in there. So so it does not propose to have those plans on any city roads in the next 10 years, just seeing it's not needed, or it's not I guess not needed based off of growth. But it did analyze it, saying, looking into see if it was needed or not.
I wonder if we could look at like maybe doing, because I know a lot of people bike out here. If we just designated one or two roads that go north and south, because those state roads are just too busy, in my opinion. I don't know, it's just a thought, you know, to get them safely through the town. You know, maybe look at even doing one road, and then bikers know that that's their safe access north and south of the trail to the village. Just a thought.
It does. I mean, I would say it does add the plan for widening of the existing roads in certain places so that there will be a shoulder, an asphalted shoulder that bikes could travel on, compared to some of these really narrow roads that we have in the city. If that's sufficient, to say that these roads can then people could ride on the shoulder. And
Is there a way to make that shoulder bigger, a little wider without doing a designated bike lane?
That would be kind of hard based off of the right of way width, dedicated right of way width the city owns. It wouldn't be that easy. Say that. Nothing's impossible, but
I know Debbie and Debbie could attest to this as well. We've gone to a few workshops that the state, it's usually through Wasatch Front Regional Council in UDOT, and there is a master plan. Every single time Debbie and I have identified to do a bike trail coming down, because if you go at 5600 south up through Roy, now that they've done their road, they have a bike trail. And I pointed out, that doesn't do us any good. Have this road next bike trail, then you come to it in. So I know Debbie can tell you as well, every time we draw on halfway then to get down, we need it going across 5900. They'll have a trail going up halfway up 4000. And again, I've said, but that doesn't do her any good, because how do we get there? You could get hit and killed before you ever made it to where their bike trails are. So we just barely had to redo a new one. I know I attended a Weaver State. I know Debbie was on Zoom. So they do have these quite often, and we did just barely whether the state does or not. We really don't know if they will, but we do every single time, and Debbie might want to add something to that as well. We always do identify that we would really like some bike lanes out here. Do any of you have any more questions? Then, as I mentioned, this is something that we do need to have an emotion on to approve this transportation master plan. And like Taylor had mentioned, not to reiterate anything he said, but it really does give direction. Then when we have developers come, that as far as he said about interblock connectivity, you know, if you go through, it was on page, it starts on page 26. The master plan, and it goes through and starts to identify roads and tells us, okay, this is what they see. And of course, this is going out to 2050. So where this is a 25-year plan, but it'll tell you then these are potential roads that they think they should widen, that sometime might possibly have curves, how much money that's. So they always recommend, and really it's somewhat mandated, that cities have master plans. So at any given time, you can look through and say, okay, this is something that could be coming within the next 25 years. So do you have any questions? Is there something that you feel ready? Because we do need to make a motion to adopt this transportation.
I just have one other question. So this is a separate item from the general plan update, right? It's totally separate.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, my only concern would be what are the other council members say? Is this something we need to get done like right? I know time is of the essence. Can we table it until Ryan and Lisa are here, or do we need to? I guess Taylor would know the answer to that.
I would say it. I mean, this process was started in 2022. It's gone longer than it should have. That also means it could go longer if it needed to, but in my mind, I think it's something that's ready to be adopted. And there can always be amendments, and then there's usually any updates, like periodically. I think it's every 10 years it kind of should be updated just to make sure it's all the growth that has happened in 10 years has gone according to the plan. So, I mean, if you wanted to wait another 2 weeks or a month, it's not going to kill anybody, but it can always plans can be changed in the details in the plan can always be amended as needed.
I mean, you're answering that question, if we can amend it. Do we have a cost on that?
I mean, it could be simple. I mean, we'd like to have a paragraph about bike lanes, or considering bike lanes. That's nothing.
But the transportation plan, it shows our match is what, 6,000?
So this has already been completed. I just wanted to point that out, that this plan was paid for 96%, 97% by a grant. And then the 6%'s already been paid for by the city over the past 2 years. So it's already done.
What's all paid for?
It's all paid for.
I do know that Taylor and Jared have been reviewing this and working on it. We've had this now for a few months that was going to be coming to the agenda, and then there was like a few tweaks. So I know Jared has reviewed this and feels confident that this is the plan that should be adopted.
Well, if it's all paid for, I'd make a motion that we, I mean, if we've already paid for the plan, make a motion that we continue on with the transportation master plan.
Okay, we had a motion made by Councilmember Powers. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second made by Councilmember Wilcox. All in favor? Abby, did she?
Aye.
Oh, okay. That motion carries. Okay, the last thing we have then is we had a vacancy on our planning commission. We had a committee that met, and tonight after having those interviews, we would like to, with your consent, appoint Travis Bates, our planning commission member. I don't know if you have any questions for him. Would you like Travis to come and ask anything?
Actually, it's on resume. So my question is, do you have enough time to do that?
I do.
So that's kind of a joke, because I've seen you here for the last 3 years.
I think I can fit it.
Yeah, so. Can you get along with that guy over there?
Probably not. Nobody needs.
There's enough, yeah.
Can I be okay? So Travis, one question I have for you is, as you've attended these meetings, and you had, like we said, you've done, and I've watched you for several years, both council and commission meetings. How do you feel like that's prepared you for applying for this position? Do you feel like you've had good training, good exposure, what happens, what doesn't happen?
Training, not so much, but the exposure piece, I think it gives a good backstory. I think it sets me apart that I'm gonna be able to kind of hit the ground running a little bit. I already know some of the backstory behind some of the things that are coming up before the commission and the council. I've paid attention to decisions that were made. I've asked a lot of questions and how they reach those decisions, so that you can kind of apply that kind of knowledge to decisions as well. So I think there's good members on both council and the commission that have been great role models, and really, it's a pretty big bar to get over. So I think there's a lot of growth coming to Hooper, and there's a lot of growth already here. There's a lot of challenges. I mean, we're going through some of the numbers for the city that I think it needs to be taken seriously, and that's why I've been here for the last couple of years. I live here. I don't want to just complain about it on Facebook. I want the knowledge, and I want to make sure that I am a part of the future of Hooper. And I want to have a decision in where I raise my family.
I agree. You are someone that's been here. We've always appreciated your support of both planning commission and city council. So is there someone that would like to make the motion to appoint Travis Bates as a good time?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to appoint Travis Space as the new planning commissioner.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Ramsdell. All in favor? Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and swear you in, Travis, right now while we're thinking of.
Next week.
I, Travis Bates,
I, Travis Bates,
to the office
have been appointed to the office
of
of Hooper City Planning Commission.
do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear.
Go
That I
ahead.
will
obey
obey and
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the State of Utah.
discharge
And I will discharge
the duties of my office with
the duties of my office with fidelity. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
Congratulations, Travis.
Thanks, Deb.
You're welcome.
One thing we talked about last night too in the interviews was possibly recommending that we have one alternate. Because now we're so into the planning commission, we have to have 4 members that we have four. So we have had some difficulty finding always a quorum. So that's one thing we wanted to discuss about the possibilities. And a name that we would like to recommend is Nate Demi to be the alternate. With an alternate, they would also come to the planning commission meetings. But they would only have a vote if we were short a planning commission member. So I just didn't know we could discuss that. That's something that you would feel like, and like I say, this was something that the committee talked about last night.
It's here, yeah.
Yes.
I think this decision probably ought to be brought before the full council, but I'm willing to entertain it for sure, so. Meeting day.
How are you?
So tell us about your profession.
So, yeah, so I used to own a business that cleaned and video inspected underground pipes, so I'm very familiar with the underground pipe world and the development and, municipal side of the management of and maintenance of facilities within municipalities. I don't own that business anymore. We sold it last year, which ended up making it so that I have a little bit more free time on my hands. I do still work there, but I manage it on a high level basis, less day to day, and yeah.
I knew that. I didn't know you sold your company at all. Good for
Yeah.
you.
We didn't spread the word too much, we just kind of go about doing our thing as quietly as possible. Living.
So do you know Jared? You know Jared fairly well then.
I do know Jared fairly well, yeah, we work with him on occasion as we help the city with some of their sewer and storm drain. Yeah. I'm also familiar with the development process. I developed my piece of land that I live on, split it into 2 lots, so I went through that process and the approvals, and I learned a lot during that, so that kind of helped move me in the right direction, prepare me to be more involved. Help me get a different perspective from the other side of the fence.
That's all I could.
Anything else? We're good?
So maybe what we could do then, because like you said, it'd be good to have the full council here. Maybe we could, if not agreeing to anything yet, but we do have a planning commission meeting next week, that if you were able to attend, so and then we could have it on the agenda for our meeting on the 15th about voting to have an alternate. And if we did, I would like to recommend from our committee, that was their recommendation. Thank you.
Would we have to change the ordinance since there's not an alternate stated within the ordinance?
Yes, we would. That would have to be rewritten in there. And like I mentioned, I think it might be a good thing because we have, like I said, had a difficult time. I'm not sure if we've had even everyone there so far to our planning commission meetings. And so I think it would be a good idea, especially with the workload. Well, let's see, next meeting, that I think it would be a good idea.
One thought that this could be an option. We'll just use Travis Bates as an example. He's been coming for probably 4 years. I think ever since I've been involved, I he's harassed me a little bit here and there, but we're friends. What if we, kind of offer Nate the same thing, why don't you come for 3 months and come to all the meetings and just kind of get up to speed before we actually get going. I don't think there's a rush, but I don't know, that's a thought that we could talk about, because obviously we have to change an ordinance, which could take a month or two, who knows? But anyway, I think May would be willing to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing nothing else on the agenda, would ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Powers,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilmember Wilcox. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.